Welcome to Alaska Matters with Chris Story. To reach Chris, call 226-3933. 226-3933. Now, giving you something to talk about, here's Chris Story.
Welcome to Alaska Matters. I'm Christopher Story, your host for Great Adventures in the Last Frontier. I want to remind you, Alaska Matters is your show. I encourage you to call in right now if you'd like, 226-3933, 226-3933. You can also send a text message and get involved in the program that way, the number 299-7653, or send an email. I'll be monitoring those throughout the program, story@xyz.net. Remember, you may be in the back seat. I'm driving the car. That's an analogy. See, I'm sitting behind the microphone. But you can reach up into the front seat, grab the steering wheel, steer us into oncoming traffic. It's okay. You can steer us right into Occupy Homer if you want to. That's not the subject of today, but we'll veer into that ditch if you'd like. We can talk about anything that's on your mind. It's your program. It's your show. It's your time to shine if you'd like to. Don't tell me that I didn't give you an opportunity later. By the way, it's Election Day. It's the 25th. Today's your day to pick between Fred Sturman or Mike Navarre. It's a runoff election, a historic event. Be part of it. Find your polling place and go there. Speaking of polls, we've got a couple here today. Pollock, that is. That would be Mike Heinbuch and Monty Davis, our guests on the program. We're going to be talking about gas. Do you want gas in Homer? They're getting it in Anchor Point. Do you want it down here? Can we afford it? Are you willing to pay more in property taxes? Are you willing to see the state pay for your gas line? Is it appropriate that everybody around Alaska pay for you to have gas? I think so. I'll tell you what, I just need more gas. What did the city do right or wrong? And why, for heaven's sake, is the gas line number 2 on the city wish list for capital projects? Will the governor veto it again? Will we get our gas? We've got, like I said, 2 political junkies here, Monty Davis and Mike Heinbuch. Okay, folks, get your needles and spoons ready. It's time for Alaska Matters. And remember, if it's a matter of importance, it's an Alaska Matter.
An amazing opportunity in the heart of Homer awaits you. Deborah Lysick at Bay Realty wants to tell you about a prime location on Pioneer Avenue, a 5,600 square foot building with land to make your Homer dream come true. Make it what you need, business, home, or both. Deborah at Bay Realty is excited about the possibilities with this building and location. It can be a restaurant, a pizza shop, retail shops, newspaper office, bed and breakfast, coffee shop with lodging. The ideas go on and on. The half-acre yard in the back's beautiful and could be a pleasant outside restaurant or play area or a peaceful resting spot for you and your guests. Remember, it's in downtown Homer on Pioneer Avenue, town center in more ways than one. The views are beautiful. Plus, it's a prime location on Pioneer Avenue and parade viewing spot. Call Deborah Lysick at Bay Realty for detailed information today at 235-6183. 235-6183. When you need results, Bay Realty.
Alaska Matters is brought to you in part by Blackwater Bend, keeping Alaska awake and perky for over 10 years. On the Sterling Highway, halfway between Homer and Anchor Point, your year-round headquarters for expertly crafted coffee and tasty treats. Make Blackwater Bend your coffee shop. Hey, what's your name?
My name is Bobby Triplett. I am a barista here at the Blackwater Bend. My favorite drink for the season is a raspberry 5-star. We are open from 5 a.m. in the morning, crack of dawn, till 7 p.m. at night.
There's still time to get those last-minute construction projects done before the snow flies. From excavating to landscaping, Gregoire Construction is the one to call to get it done. Talk to Richard about the work you'd like to have completed this fall. Driveways, asphalt paving, water and sewer, land clearing and landscaping. Call 399-1526, 399-1526. Once winter arrives, remember to call Richard for all your snow removal, snow plowing, and sanding needs. Licensed, bonded, and insured. Gregoire Construction.
Big thanks to all our sponsors for making Alaska Matters happen. That would be Blackwater Bend Espresso. Never leave Homer without it. Trademarked, copywritten. Gregoire Construction, your local one-stop contractor from gravel to asphalt paving. And if you run into one of our sponsors, first of all, get their insurance information. That was funny. But be sure to say thank you, because we couldn't do it without them. In fact, one of them, let me just open with this. Deborah Lysick sent me an email from Bay Realty. She wanted me to let you know that it's time once again for the pumpkin carving contest. And this year, she's actually putting all the proceeds and sponsorship towards Save the Boys and Girls Club Fund. And, of course, donators and sponsors of that program are Story Real Estate, Nancy Seinhorst, Gina Palea of Bay Realty, Lands End Resort, Hilda Stepkins with Residential Mortgage, First National, Chip Dugan of Glacier Drive-In, Deborah Lysick of Bay Realty, and one very generous unnamed sponsor. So be sure to go to Bay Realty Alaska to find out more information, bayrealtyalaska.com, how you can get involved with that annual pumpkin carving contest. This is like year 12. All right, enough about our sponsors, and let's get to the program, because we've got Mike Heinbuch and Monty Davis here, and we'll introduce first Mike Heinbuch. Hello and welcome to Alaska Matters, Mike.
Chris, thank you very much. I'm not sure I'm on the right show with all that introduction you've laid out for us, but happy to be here, boss.
That's right. I like that. Keep the boss business up. Mike, talk a little bit, first of all, about, before we get to the gas line, I wanted to ask you a couple of key questions, because I think, well, I may not respect it. You've got an opinion on everything. I'm kidding. I respect your opinion. It's once in a while. But let's talk about non-prepared food tax. Do you think that issue's ever going to die? Are we ever going to just have the non-prepared food tax holiday left alone, or is it going to keep coming up, you see, in the borough and in the city?
Taxation matters always come up before people. Every time that we talk about taxes, everybody has a different idea of how the Treasury should be originated. Some people feel property tax, some people feel usage tax, some people feel sales tax. But as you move towards a more and more seasonal town, I think it's going to become very difficult to convince people that they should pay increased taxes on food during the wintertime to help support an infrastructure that's been developed around the summertime.
There you go. That's a political answer, isn't it? I mean, that's actually not a bad way to look at it. And now it looks as though if the question doesn't come up again about whether we should repeal it, it might even shrink, because it sounds like maybe both candidates for borough mayor would like to see it not collected over 2 quarters but just one. So if we don't get asked again, do we still want that holiday, it may in fact just shrink up anyway by virtue of putting it into 1 quarter instead of 2. I could be wrong on that. Let's move on to term limits. What did you think about that? Was that handled correctly, do you think, Mike?
Term limits is something that we always have. It's probably a natural and healthy part of politics. People tend to think that, looking at the human condition, that once people get into elected office, it's very hard for them to leave the limelight. I think people's attitudes about term limits are very much reflected in that movement that comes around every once in a while.
Yeah, I agree. Either of you want to jump into the Occupy Homer? Oh, all right. We'll stay away from that for the moment. But maybe a listener will bring it up, and we can get the pulse of the people here. What do people really think about that? Is it a legitimate movement, or is it a group of people that are trying to stay warm by huddling together? I don't know. Monty Davis, welcome to the program.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. Now, Monty Davis, of course, the director of the Homer Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, sir.
And ever the lightning rod position. You guys are doing a lot of stuff down there, and just everything seems to be coming at you at once.
That's true. Yeah, I did feel like I walked right into the frying pan. And, I'm actually really enjoying it, believe it or not. I'm actually glad to be there. As tough as it was in some of the positions that happened over the course of this past few months. But, again, certainly not to brag, but I'm really glad I was there, to be part of that going forward.
And going forward, we're going to be talking about the gas line today, and Homer Chamber of Commerce, along with the Board of Realtors, Gatchamac Board of Realtors, are going to be, I think, working together on a symposium about the gas line.
That is correct.
And we'll get into the dates and specifics of that in a moment. But let's first turn back to Mike Heinbuch. Wake him up, would you, Monty?
Yeah, Mike.
And Mike, talk to us about the commission that you chaired. You didn't just sit on the commission. You chaired this commission for the city of Homer relative to the gas line extension. How did that go? I mean, did it come out the way you expected it? And what was the result, if any?
It's arguable that we were ahead of the curve at the time, but it was thought that if the city were to start participating in an organized effort to describe the kind of infrastructure we would build inside the town if the gas line got here, that it would be of some benefit somehow at the legislative level for people trying to fund the main gas line. But as it turns out, that wasn't enough skin in the game, and I argued for a different approach for how we should consider using city funds to help fund the main line down here.
So by not enough skin in the game, you mean, in other words, we got to get it here before we solve the infrastructure problem. We still got to get the gas line.
There's a lot of people who have it confused. They think that the big deal is us figuring out how to do this infrastructure in the town. The big deal is really trying to convince either Instar or the state that even though we don't have enough people to make it pencil out at this time, that it's in the state's long-term best interest, or Instar's, to bring that gas line down from Homer.
Do you have an opinion on or knowledge about why the governor vetoed the money to begin with, and do you think we'll get it this next time around?
There's many reasons that the governor vetoed it. Number one, it kind of falls outside the normal things that the state tends to subsidize for people that are on the road system. There's also people in the legislature with conflicting convictions about whether or not it's right for the state to do something. But the list goes on and on. In my opinion, the biggest reason the governor didn't fund this is because we didn't step up to the plate and even attempt to offer any matching funds for that project from Anchor Point into the top of Homer.
All right. Monty, you look like you wanted to weigh in on that.
Well, I've heard that the governor says it's outside of the scope of normal, that they don't normally do that for communities, but when you bring up Nicolaitis and even Anchor Point itself, they did it specifically for those two, and so I didn't get that was actually a real legitimate reason for me personally. It's as a matter of fact, if I may, talking with one of our borough assemblymen the other day, he said when he actually brought those two communities up to the governor, because the governor had said something specifically about that, the governor said, "Now what are those two communities?" and literally wrote them down. So,
okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the next question. You think we'll get it in the next go-round? Well, the state funding, I should say.
Yeah, I don't mean to disagree with Monty about this, but the reason that they have it out in Nikolaevsk and on Anchor on the North Fork Road is because the gas was right there. It was just a hop and a skip. We're looking at probably about $11 million to bring that line down into Homer, and the irony is that that figure jumped almost $4 million in 1 year between the time we started a couple of years ago when it first got into the budget and this last year. Are we going to see it? There are people that are on the city council that are very divided on whether or not the city should be a participant in helping bring the main line in. They think that if we give Instar money to build that line, we will never see it again. And they don't feel it's proper for us to hand over money to a pipeline company. On the other hand, we're kind of caught in a hard place. If we expect the state to kick in some money for this, we're going to have to show some money up front. But we don't. It's a very complicated issue about how money should be generated. But the thing that's missing, in my opinion, right now, more than anything, is that the people of Homer have not had a chance to weigh in whether or not they would be willing to spend money from something like our Accelerated Roads project to help fund that 8-inch line from Anchor Point. And until we do that, nobody's going to know how much skin in the game the city and the community really have.
You said the council's divided specifically on this gas. I mean, they're divided on everything. That's the nature of politics, I guess. But on this gas issue, does that explain why it's number 2 on the capital projects list, or is there another reason behind that? Do you know?
The capital projects list is just an exercise to go through. Personally, I don't think it means an awful lot.
The governor doesn't look at that and go, "Oh, you've got it as number 2. You know what? Well, you're not serious about it."
In my opinion, it's extremely inconsequential.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. Talk about the Accelerated Roads project. In other words, the fund. That's money that's been set aside over the years to enhance areas with limited improvement districts for road and water and sewer?
Yeah. No, the HOSP is a different program.
Okay, that's the sewer and water.
But the Homer Accelerated Roads project arguably was to help bring our roads up to standards so that we would have an influx of people into the city so that we could, be a more efficient population. My idea is that if you put gas along these streets, even streets that are not built up to spec right now, we'd have a better chance of people coming in because if energy costs are reduced and people have a desire to live there. But the biggest thing about using that fund, in my opinion, is that it's something you could sell to the state and say, hey, look, we can defray a $6 million, a $10 million bond out of this. It's 0.25% of sales tax that doesn't have a sunset on it right now, and it can be dedicated to payment of a bond for this thing. Set them out. Subsequent beauty to it is then when, because now it's we can use that money for the infrastructure or the main line, then the city council very simply can decide to spend money here or there on 2-inch lines for this neighborhood or that neighborhood, and it's not a big special service area or an LID. It becomes very, very simple. and then the will of the people to vote on whether they should do it or not, makes it all very clear. Yeah, let's do it. Let's spend our money from this roads fund, accelerated roads program, and let's expand that program to include gas and see where it goes.
My guests are Monty Davis with the Homer Chamber of Commerce and Mike Heinbach, who formerly chaired a gas commission for the city of Homer. This is your time to weigh in, 226-3933. If you want to get in on the conversation, have a question for either gentleman here, that would include myself and Monty, or Mike, or just weigh in on anything you'd like. Do you want gas? Are we going to get it in our lifetime? And what did Jim Sims have to say about this with NSTAR? We'll discuss that and more with our guests right here on Alaska Matters.
Oh no, I'm out of water. No problem. Call More and More, your locally owned water supplier. 24-hour service from your locally owned water company. Tired of working with an outside corporation? Want to support local business and get better service for less? Then put More and More to work for you. 235-8837. More and More is next door. 235-8837.
Now that it's colder and darkness has taken over, it's easy to let it get you down. But you know, one thing that really perks me up, how more and more people are lighting up their houses for the holidays, thanks to Christmas Decor by Dutch Boy Landscaping. Dutch Boy makes turning your home or business into a cheery piece of the winter puzzle, minus the hassle of having to find a good spot to base a ladder on ice, battle the elements, or scale that roof. It makes a lot of sense to rely on expert decorators trained in safety and proper installation methods. Christmas Decor offers customized lighting displays, garlands, wreaths, and bows. They can design the display, install it, maintain it. They even take down and clean up when the season's over. So if you've been dreading hauling out boxes and boxes of holiday decorations and the threat to life and limb it entails, maybe it's your year to leave it to Christmas Decor by Dutch Boy Landscaping. Find out more about brightening up your place with professional holiday decorating. Contact Danny at 235-7140. 235-7140. Christmas Decor by Dutch Boy. Call now.
The Caribou Family Restaurant looks great after their remodel, and is still open daily 6 a.m. till 10 at Lake Street and Pioneer Avenue in Homer, and open 24 hours daily in Soldotna at the corner of K Beach Road and the Sterling Highway. The Caribou Family Restaurant features prime rib on Friday and Saturday nights. Breakfast or lunch, any time of the day. The Caribou Family Restaurant in Homer and in Soldotna, open every day of the year, where friends and family meet.
You're listening to Alaska Matters. I'm Christopher Story, your host for Great Adventures today in gas. And who better to have on the program than a couple of gas bags themselves, Monty Davis and Mike Heinbach. I want to remind you that Alaska Matters comes your way due to the support of our generous sponsors, and without them we wouldn't be here. Once again, Bay Realty online at bayrealtyalaska.com. You can follow Deborah's blog there, and don't forget about the annual pumpkin carving contest, bragging rights, and plus you can support the Boys and Girls Club by doing so. And Dutch Boy Landscaping, Christmas Decor. Light up your life and improve your own backyard. Give Danny a call today. It's extremely affordable. If you've never checked it out, it's a lot more affordable than you would think. And you could do like we do here down at Story Real Estate. We do our eaves and a couple of other peaks and valleys and call it a day. And it looks beautiful. We enjoy it all winter long. If you miss any portion of this program, I want to remind you that it is available via podcast from our website, radiorealty.us. Click on the Listen Now button halfway down the screen for Alaska Matters, and you can listen right now later today. How's that for an oxymoron? Well, and what better way to introduce my guest, Mike Heinbach? And
Chris,
of course,
I see you're still driving and talking under the influence of caffeine. Good to see you again.
Oh, caffeine from Blackwater Bend, espresso.
Yeah.
Never leave Homer without it.
How did you get there? He says it's 15 miles out of Homer, Chris. How can you not leave Homer without it?
That's right. It's halfway. It's actually only halfway.
You should be in a halfway house, that's for sure.
I knew this was going to be a rough program, Monty, and I really thought long and hard about, yes, Mike may have chaired the gas commission. He may know a little something about something, but is it a good idea to have him here or not? I don't know.
Did you know he was going to know everything about everything?
Yes. I've met Mike before. This is not my first rodeo with Mike. I talked to Jim Sims, just to bring you up to speed. If you're just joining us, we're talking about gas. We're talking about the gas line from Anchor Point to Homer. Why did Anchor Point get it? Well, it was just discussed a little bit ago. That's where the gas is coming from. And so that makes perfect sense that they'd want to tie back into the Nilchik. And in fact, that's exactly what Jim Sims told me earlier today with NSTAR. I did speak to Jim because I got a couple of emails. As people heard we were going to be talking about this, they were saying things like, well, why should the state pay for this? Why shouldn't it be self-supporting? If it's not appropriate or not, I've just been corrected. It's actually John Sims with NSTAR. Thank you, Tiffany. If it's not a pencilable project, if it doesn't warrant building, why should the state build it and so forth? So that prompted me to call John Sims with NSTAR. And John said, look, we're not able to commit to a timeline right now. He confirmed what Mike just said. It's a $10 to $11 million project. There aren't enough customers for NSTAR to warrant, I guess, digging into their own pocket and building the line. So the question then comes, do we feel strongly enough as a people, as a community, as a city to pay for this ourselves? Mike Heimbach brought up the idea of tapping into HARP, the Homer Accelerated Roads Project Fund. Is that an appropriate use of the money? Well, let's talk a little bit more about it. And what, if any, are there relative to unintended consequences, Mike, in your opinion? Homer Electric, if we start using less kilowatt hours, their fixed costs remain the same, might we see an increase in electric costs? And just as a spitball there of one unintended consequence, and are there any others? Or is it all upside, in your opinion, if we can make it the line between Anchor Point and Homer?
I think it's fairly clear that the cost savings for the community at large by getting natural gas in is going to dwarf any increase in reduced efficiencies for something like HEA.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest benefit of trying to use HARP is it may be the only leverage we have to try to show the governor's office that we're capable of supplying matching funds for the major part of the project.
And so that's the only way to really get this is with the governor's help, with the state's help. I mean, is that what you're saying? Really, we're not going to get it done any other way?
There reaches a point that even if we did it ourselves, why would we spend $12 million on something that'll save the community $12 million?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's at some point, you have to have some help on this. There's not enough savings in the reduced cost. One of the unsung things so far is that we have all these borough and state buildings who are major users of electricity.
Mm-hmm.
If we could get them to defray part of the cost of bringing this line down and be able to charge them to a certain extent, this could be a very doable project.
One of the other questions that somebody asked me, and I did not know how to answer this, Mike, maybe your commission tackled it, likely payback time. Are we talking 1, 3 years? Now, I'm talking about homeowners. Let's say the gas line comes to Homer, it runs by my home, I choose to connect to it. There's going to be a cost for me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you look at what the payback timeline would be for me to connect and retool the house or whatever is going to be needed there? Because there will be an investment from the homeowners and businesses.
You can't really do it like that in a sense that everybody's energy needs are different depending on the size of your house, depending on what you do, depending on the business, depending on how far off the road you are. We can look at a general cost of about $17 a foot for lines that come off the main line that go into our neighborhoods. $17 a foot is about what it costs. But we have areas that will pay back quickly. We have areas that will pay back in a long period of time. But it's important to keep dissecting and separating out the cost of the infrastructure once it reaches the city limits as opposed to the cost of the big line from way up the highway.
Okay.
So there's the transmission line, and then there's the distribution line.
Absolutely.
And that is, yeah. When I've heard a few different discussions, and it always comes back to what's it going to cost me to get it into my door. But the bottom line is we have to get it to Homer first before we'll even know.
John Sims' biggest headache up there is the fact that they can scratch their head all they want about trying to raise their charges to their existing customers to help subsidize the line down here, but significant tariff changes for that company have to go through the Regulatory Commission of Alaska. And if they see that what the use of that funds is going to bring gas to perhaps an area that doesn't pencil out real well, they're going to take a long, hard look at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. I've been saying this is an opportunity for people to weigh in on the subject. Mike, you said that you're ready for people of Homer to weigh in on this. Monty, the Homer Chamber of Commerce, is bringing together a group of people. Is it a symposium? What are you calling this?
Well, at this point, it's kind of a panel discussion. We have as a matter of fact, this afternoon I anticipate getting confirmations from Representative Seaton, from Senator Stevens. Walt Reedy, the city manager, has already agreed that he will be at this symposium. It's going to be, now this is all tentative at this point. I should be able to confirm it this afternoon. I tried to this morning, knowing that I was going to be on here, was unable to. But what we're looking at is on November 17th, and we have tentatively booked the Islands and Ocean Visitor Center, that little theater room that they have. It seats 170 people, and literally there were a couple of things that were discussed. First of all, a general discussion about the finances of bringing the transmission line here. This is really about getting the transmission line here first. So it was a general discussion, financials, about getting the transmission line brought here. And then the second thing that I wanted to see was how can the people of Homer, should they choose to, if they want that transmission line brought here, how can they effectively help lobby as a community? Because I've seen several kind of panels on this through my years here in Alaska, and you learn so much at those panels from the representatives themselves. These guys get hundreds of letters, thousands of letters. So sometimes they will tell you, the last thing we want to see is some kind of a form letter. What they want to hear is, and I'll just give you an example. For instance, I'm a single mother. I have 3 kids that I'm putting through school. If I'm actually looking at, a savings of, say, 25% in my utility costs over the course of a year, to me, that's a lot of money. Those are the things that the governor and anybody else that they send those letters, those are very effective letters. And so that was part of what we wanted the discussion that night to be about, was if you're going to help lobby, here's a really good way for you to do it. Here's how to write your letter. Here's how to,
So it's almost a tutorial for the people.
Exactly. And when to do it. Don't wait until it gets into the session when they're actually in the debate, because those guys at that point in time don't have. Maybe do it now, before they ever get there, so that they know how we stand as a community. So that's what the essence of what that, on November 17th at Islands and Ocean. And again, please everybody understand this is tentative. I will let you know, Chris.
Keep us informed here on Alaska Matters. We'll be glad to promote that for you,
And again,
Monty.
that's thanks to the Catchback Board of Realtors. That was a grant.
That's fantastic. Mike, in the final minute that we've got together, can you just quickly qualify anything that the city has done right relative to this, or do you think it's being handled improperly, or is it being done right, and we can just go and talk to our folks at the City Council?
This is definitely an opinion. I don't feel the city's done anything yet. I mean, we've facilitated line drawings of where pipes would go. The single thing that's missing after Monty's outreach to get people to prod the governor's office and our legislators to get off the dime is that we have to show that we have serious skin in the game to get that line from Anchor Point to here. And until the public weighs in on that, you can have all the forums you want, you can write all the letters you want, and the governor will say, oh, you're just like everybody else, you want something, oh, you wrote me a letter, that's nice. Where's your part of the money?
Right. Show me the money.
Absolutely. And we haven't done that, period.
Right now, what would you suggest people do? Contact the city manager's office? Contact their council members? What?
Actually, we got, when I brought this proposal up before our commission last year, they didn't go along with it. I said, we need to put this out to a vote, to ask the people if they use this fund.
So a ballot measure.
I was voted down at that, and at that point, the commission was pretty much, no, it's not disbanded so much, but it really lost a lot of steam.
All right. I want to thank my guest, Monty Davis, Homer Chamber of Commerce. Mike Heimbach.
Thank you.
Do I have
Whatever
1 second?
it is that you do. 1 second.
Please go buy your car raffle tickets.
Yes,
Homer Chamber of Commerce. Next Thursday, November 3rd, is the drawing. Mr. Chris Story will be our MC. We're looking forward to that. Car raffle tickets and ATV tickets at the Chamber.
You heard it right here.
Board members.
All right, folks. We'll be back next week. Don't forget you can podcast this program from RadioRealty.us. Just click on the Listen Now button on the Alaska Matters portion of that page. If you want to weigh in on the gas issue, you feel free to shoot me an email, story at XYZ. If you have a topic you would like us to handle here on Alaska Matters, please send me an email as well. And I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Dave Webb for engineering the program, all of our sponsors for making it possible, and Mr. Dave Becker for the generous use of his air. We'll see you next week, and remember, if it's a matter of importance, it's an Alaskan matter.
The Peninsula's home for unforgettable favorites. Great listening, 620 AM, KGTL, Homer.